Welcome to At Your Service, the service management podcast on the CRM Audio Network, with your hosts, Sean Tabor and Scott LaFonte.
This episode of At Your Service is sponsored by Ingenious. Ingenious Connector Enterprise integrates your telephone system into Microsoft Dynamics 365 and CRM for increased phone agent productivity. The solution equips service desks and contact centers with features like screen pop, click to dial, automated call logging, and call reports for a comprehensive view of interactions. Enable efficient customer service and intelligent decision-making with Ingenious. Check out their website, ingenious.com. That's INGENIUS. We thank Ingenious for sponsoring At Your Service from CRM Audio.
Welcome to another episode of At Your Service, the Dynamics 365 podcast, focused on the service pillars of customer service, field service, and project service. And you know, last week I got the flubbed up on the project service, so I'm glad I got through that without making a mistake this time. As always, I am Sean Tabor, your host, and I have with me my co-host, Scott LaFonte. Scott, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Sean. How are you on this lovely Monday morning, or Monday afternoon, excuse me. Oh, it's been a long day.
Exactly. Long week already, right?
It has been, absolutely.
So, you know, it was made a little longer. I'll give a little insight to our listening audience. Scott and I were supposed to meet up at Starbucks and get some work done for this busy week, and someone had a headache.
Yeah, someone had a rough morning. I'm not going to say who, but it was definitely me.
Yeah. Well, I enjoyed my latte, and I got some work done. So, we got a great episode for you guys this week. This is last week we talked about what you need to know, part 2 for customer service. With it was a concentrated episode of Diva Time, so that was a fun episode with Sarah Jelinek. And this week we have a guest, and we're going to talk about a topic that's pretty important to me personally. I could see a lot of impact with this topic, that being omnichannel communication, especially as we see our customer base, our employee base grow and age. There's certain expectations that my kids, your kids, the people that we're going to hire have in terms of what customer service means and how they access information, how they do work. And it's a really important topic. And one of the leading partners who help with omnichannel communication in terms of Dynamics 365 is CaféX, and I've invited them to speak with us today.
Yes, it's a very exciting day here at Your Service, and you know we, as usual, we're usually pretty excitable folks on this call, and but this is another plateau for the show in terms of guests that we've had on here, because really excited about CaféX and the two folks that we have on this call. So I won't steal your thunder, Sean, but I just wanted to chime in and just say how excited I am to have them.
No worries. And from CaféX we have Todd.Lewis and Leigh, and I'm going to try not to say it wrong, Weishelbaum? Excellent. I did it.
You got it right.
See, that is the podcaster voice coming through.
That's why they call him the Hobbit.
That's right. So, Todd and Leigh, why don't you guys introduce yourself a little bit? Let our listeners know who you are, where you work, what CaféX is, all that kind of good stuff.
Okay, sure. So my name is Todd.Lewis, and I am responsible for partner enablement and also customer success here at CaféX. And CaféX is a company that really strives to make it easy for people to collaborate and work together through a variety of channels, hence the OmniChannel podcast that we're joining you on today.
Thanks.
Leigh?
Yeah, thanks, Todd. And thank you, Sean, for having us.
No worries.
My name is Leigh.Weishelbaum, and I, too, work with Todd in partner enablement and customer success at CaféX.
Very cool. So with the topic of omni-channel communication is a big one, right? Let's start out. Let's do a. I listened to a podcast where they it's all about Funko Pop and their little pop vinyl figures that I collect. But
right.
They do a segment where they get questions, and they have something called an all play. So that means everybody on the show gets to answer. So here's the question, and this is for everybody. What to you is an omnichannel experience?
Well, I'll go ahead and answer that one first. For me, omnichannel really is when I, as a consumer, have the choice of channel that I will use to communicate with my service providers, my retail organizations, what have you. But it's really my ability to choose the channel that I want and them being able to meet me where I am.
Okay.
Leigh, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly agree with you. I want to have the channel I want when I want it, right? So the ability to engage, whether I'm on my phone or I'm behind my desktop, or pick up the phone, I want to be able to interact with a customer service rep the way I want to. So I would agree with you.
Yeah, I would agree as well. I mean, if you look at, one of the things that Sean brought up was the millennials, and as we get into the younger generation, and God knows I have two different generations in my house besides my wife and I, and how they communicate with the outside world is, in most circumstances, much different than how we probably communicate. A lot of theirs is on their phone and text messaging and things like that. Hardly ever can I get them to actually pick up the phone and call me, even if they're 3 rooms away in the house. So I would agree. It's just the way to have it, and hey, phone, email, text, chat, whatever it may be. I think, Todd, you hit it on the nail on the head.
I would agree with what everybody has said. In regards to an omni-channel experience. The channels, though, I would say, dependent on the experience, have you found sometimes that they're not real obviously apparent to you, the channels that you have to choose from? And what I mean by that is, I'll give you an example. I went to get an oil change. And typical, you go to the dealer. I go to the Toyota dealer. I pull in. There's a big board that they have from my last oil change sticker, an RFID tag in that is recognized and welcomes me, right? So I know they know who I am.
Right.
I'm on a big board of people that have appointments. And
everyone knows who you are, Sean.
I'm a popular guy. So they're welcoming me in, right? And that's great. And then I talk to my service advisor, and then I go to the waiting area. At the waiting area, it's kind of like, okay, how do I know when my car's ready? How do I know when they have a question? How do I know when besides getting up and walking over and talking to somebody, what do I do? And in this case, they started this new process where they send a text notification to your phone that says, this is the text chat for your service appointment. If you have any questions, text me back here, and I'll get right on it, right? Which that was not even a thought until that popped up. It's a great tool. It gives me and now that's the only way I do it. I used to get up and I'd go find my service advisor, or I'd talk to somebody or what have you. But I found that this method now makes me, one, not have to talk to salespeople, which is great, because no, I don't always want to sell you my car. Right.
Right. So once you've discovered this channel and this offering from them, now you just can't imagine doing it any other way, right?
Exactly. And now I schedule my service on the website. When I get there, they know who I am through the RFID tag. They text me. I go back and forth. And what's great about the texting part is when, for example, when I need more service, when they recommend more things, I can forward that text to my wife and say, "Here's from the dealer. This is what they need, so you know how much I'm paying." Right? It's another level of communication
because we know she won't believe you.
It's an integrated, and I think this is the key. It's an integrated experience, right? So I think integration to not only the channel that of your interest, but the experience itself is key for an omnichannel to really work well. That's one example that I have, but a well-designed website. I schedule my hair appointment now for a haircut on Facebook with a button, and that's much easier than calling, which is bizarre to me in a sense.
Right.
I mean, I'm not an old man, but at the same time, it's very rare I call anybody anymore. Because there are much easier ways to experience that customer service and that ability to interact.
I think you're tapping into something that's pretty essential. It's the customer experience, but not just. I mean, we can all say experience is important, and of course it's true, but I think it's also the level of customer effort. What's the level of effort I have to go through to get my request answered or resolved or whatever the case may be? And if they've implemented, your barber has implemented online scheduling through Facebook, well, then that's just as easy as pie, right? And ditto with the texting from the waiting room. These are all different channels that have been produced in order to make it much easier for you to get the answers you want, and not necessarily just introducing channels because you prefer them, but because it's the ease of the experience. I think that's an important factor. When it's done correctly, that's how omnichannel should appear, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not like you walk into the waiting room and you're like, well, I've got a phone, I got a text, I got an email, I got a social page, and you get like channel saturation. I think when it's done correctly, you're being offered the right channel at the right time to get the right resource.
Right, exactly.
Because I've seen it implemented the wrong way. They think it's the right way, and they have all these channels set up, but the right hand's not talking to the left hand. So, I'll get the text message to confirm, and I'll say yes, and then all of a sudden, a day later, I'll get an email or a phone call. Hey, Mr. LaFonte, we're looking to confirm your appointment. I just did that yesterday.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it didn't come through. Well, why do you have this then? Mm-hmm. You're wasting my time. And as we all know, in this world today, we don't have a lot of extra downtime. And when we do, we're doing it with either our family or things we want to do. So to have that convenience, if you're going to implement it, make sure it's implemented right. Otherwise, you're just frustrating your customer base.
And that brings up an excellent segue, Scott. The business process behind the desire for omni-channel communication or experience is important, because from a Dynamics 365 perspective and in a customer service capacity, we have talked about in previous episodes about what you need to know about customer service when implementing and really defining what kind of company you are. What does customer service mean to you? That sort of thing. I think this goes hand in hand. So from a CaféX perspective, this would be good to know. When you're coming into an implementation and you have all of these communication vehicles available through the solution, and it could be extended on top of that, obviously.
Right.
Where does the rubber meet the road in terms of how well their business process is defined to take advantage of that experience? Or do you find that is something that you commonly have to work with the client to help them understand how to improve that?
Well, I'll jump in here, Todd, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
So we really sit down. I mean, when a client comes to the table, they understand what it is they're trying to accomplish. But really, we like to sit down with them and understand the customer journey, right? What are they trying to solve for? where are they trying to get to? Where are the roadblocks? So really understanding what the journey is and then helping them define that and how to best use the product in conjunction with the CRM.
So are you looking at more their existing customer behavior, or are you looking at where they're wanting to mold that behavior into to
Both.
get to that answer?
Right?
Okay.
Both. So we want to see what are they doing today and how do we help them get to where they want to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So really looking at helping them and with our expertise and best practices of how to solve for that. Maybe it's not interacting with a live person through chat. Maybe it's using a bot to help solve a problem, right? So they may have not have even thought of that, right?
Right.
Yeah. So really understanding both.
This is a good point here. I just wanted to also mention that this is an area for partners of CaféX to also excel. So at the end of the day, we have this omnichannel platform. As I mentioned at the top of the show, CaféX is a company that tries to make it easy for people to collaborate and work together. And ideally, if this stuff sells like gangbusters, and we're doing a pretty good job of that, there are going to be opportunities for partners to come alongside and bring their expertise to the various industries and verticals and do just this kind of consulting where they sit down and start talking to companies and saying, how would you like to engage your customers? Have you thought about this? And that's where CaféX is really excelling, is in how you engage your visitors, whereas Dynamics is really set up to be marshaling all of those business processes, those workflows, those kinds of resources in the background. And so it's a great pairing between the two. And as I like to say, CaféX really extends Dynamics 365 out into your customer portals.
Yeah, that's a great point, Todd. And I think that's what, folks that have Dynamics 365 that are looking to reach their customers and are looking at, revamping, right? A lot of organizations out there, they have websites. Some of them may be older, right? And as we're in a era of constant change, right? We have to revamp our business model and structure and how we're going to reach out to our customers on a regular basis if we're going to stay ahead and be profitable. So to that extent, I would agree with you that say, hey, having a solution like CaféX on the kind of like the front end, I would say, from a portal perspective and being able to communicate, whether it's bots and things like that, and then sending that back to Dynamics so that data is there to, from a reporting, from a trend capability and seeing all of those metrics is quite invaluable.
And speaking of the trends, I mean, when you're looking at an implementation, and let's say you've implemented 3 channels, maybe you've implemented a chat, you've implemented a bot, and let's just say standard email, right, where they can get you through email. And when you're looking at those trends, how are you putting an eye towards when those channels are not as effective as you'd like? What kind of metrics are you typically advising in terms of is it first call resolution without the use of an agent? Is it repeat customers? What are you looking for when you're implementing a particular channel to help support the trending information that you receive from it?
Yeah, so that's almost secret sauce type of stuff. I mean, not in the metrics per se, but in how you gather all of that data. So a couple of the ones that you would normally look at, you were right in, repeat customers or first contact resolution. Those, repeat customers, that's the type of information that you normally get out of Dynamics because it has concept of cases and tickets and opportunities that have longer lifespans than just the conversation you're having right now. But when you start looking at first contact resolution, those are things that can come out of customer satisfaction surveys following an interaction, or net promoter score, if you will. It's another good one to use. So those are all important metrics. If you start looking into sales scenarios, it's things like, what's your conversion rate, and then what's the delta in conversion rate between assisted visitors versus unassisted visitors. So you want to always keep an eye on that baseline and see if, indeed, your efforts and your initiatives are having the effect that you desire.
Right, because it's a different. It's obviously going to be some different metrics based on the different vertical industries that you're dealing with. Retail is going to be different than manufacturing.
Right.
Is going to be different than financial services, et cetera. But given that, from your perspective, in terms of that omni-channel experience, give me the name that comes on top of your head in terms of who gets it right. What give me a company that's done it right. As a for example for the audience.
Well, I think from a perspective of that, your bank, right? Any of the large banks that I've worked with, they seem to get it. They, I have to reset my password if I'm having trouble finding something. They've given me lots of different avenues to engage in, whether it's chat or pick up the phone, whether I get notification on my phone through SMS. Definitely the big banks have done a great job of that.
The one that always comes to my mind, because I use this app every single day, multiple times a day, is Starbucks. It's so easy to use. It is so responsive, and I think the biggest aha moment for me came when I went in to get coffee, because I get coffee every day, 1-ish. And there was a line of 12 people. Normally I would leave, but with the app, I could order on the app, and I could just pick it up. So it took me 3 minutes to get my coffee, and I skipped that line altogether.
I tell you what, I agree with that. At the same time, I think it creates an interesting educational trend, like avoid the line, because everyone who's texting in or using the app to get their orders put in, they're making your wait in that line longer, right? Because you're just walking in and picking it up, and that's a coffee that could have been someone else's. So I think that the trend there is everybody ought to jump on the app.
Yeah. Well, and I will say the app doesn't do as good a job as someone in person to get me to buy a scone or something.
Well,
right?
And that's true. You don't get the upsell. Well, and here's another tidbit too, right? So, and I've seen this, going through the McDonald's line for my kids, especially after a long baseball day. And there's an app, and you could just order on there. Or sometimes like, hey, you get a free burger or whatever. Well, now it's like, hey, if you order and pay with the app, then you get the discount.
Right.
So now there's that shift even there to say, hey, you used to be, hey, order online or use this app and you can get a discount. Now it's like, hey, if you order online and pick it up, we'll give you an incentive to do so, and that becomes a little bit interesting, because sometimes, right, we all have sometimes special requests. Like my kids like their burger with just cheese. Don't put pickle on it and mustard. It's not going to happen. A lot of these don't let you, and then you want to just make sure that they're reconfirming that. And if you sometimes order from the app, you don't get that little personalization that, depending on the industry, is important.
Right. It's I think it goes back to something we said in the top of the program. It's that experience that's important to a specific person, right? So, to me, personalization, I don't think of it, but yet at the same time, I know it's important because I have all my favorites, the things that I order from Starbucks and the like. But let's take it a step further. in terms of personalization for the customer communication, let's talk about a Dynamics 365 implementation. Okay. Let's talk about, let's go into the manufacturing space, because that's top of mind for me right now anyway. And we have a website that you can browse, parts, you can browse products, you can browse whatever you'd like. And then you have obviously a customer support center. How do you go about managing that experience for a customer that is meaningful and hits that automation versus personalization, especially as we start dealing with more and more younger folks integrating and dealing with our projects?
So that's an interesting industry to focus on. So like manufacturing, I started thinking, when you think about manufacturers that are reaching out to their customer base, I often think of like the automotive industry, right? Because we have these wonderful cars, and you can get the different models, you can get the different add-ons and all that stuff, and you're going to get yours configured the way you want. And as an automotive manufacturer, I want to be able to engage with you, and yet I still need to keep all of your preferences, your configurations in mind. And so I think that's an important step when we're choosing to engage you. And I say we, I'm assuming the mantle of some car company, but when that company decides to engage with you, if they're doing this right, they've been tracking what you've browsed, what you've configured. They've got that in your customer record. And then from the CaféX point of view, the more of that information that we can get, we can take into account for the way that we engage those visitors. So again, when that comes down to channel selection, to the engagement appearance, which are the types of invites or the slide outs or the mobile engagements that drive the most beneficial interactions. The more of that information we have from the personalized perspective, the more our system can automatically engage and drive the right outcomes. But
so when you're saying drive the right outcomes, that's interesting to me, because for a number of reasons. One, from a customer perspective, I could definitely see how your remembering and your personalization of that experience or previous experiences would then lead to a more fluid, an easier navigational experience for them. But in terms of the company in question, let's say it's an automotive manufacturer, how do we help them get to that next step? Are we looking at just human nature? If we can get someone to get to this point in their process, they're 90% likely to make a purchase or to inquire again, or how is that done?
So the first thing that you want to look at is what are the outcomes of your initiatives, right? If you're going to put together a campaign to engage your visitors, what's the desired outcome? If it's to do sales in this case, like I'm going to complete the purchase, or I'm going to go down to a dealer, you've booked a ride for me, a test drive. Those outcomes are discrete. They're important to understand, and you want to try to identify the triggering behavior as early as possible. And when we start applying OmniChannel to that, some of the additional, more automated features, such as bots, Leigh mentioned those earlier, or within CaféX, we have the idea of content engagement. So it's the ability to put suggested content in front of a customer to try to tune that journey in that fashion. The higher up in that funnel you can start targeting the right behavior and getting people following the paths that you'd like to encourage, the better off you are. And that's where a tool like CaféX can definitely help those companies with that process. I think the other interesting thing about channel selection, and you mentioned earlier about millennials and what does it mean. I think with the way that millennials prefer to interact with each other, right? And it's less about voice, and I heard you on that one. In fact, one of my favorite quotes is, "Phone is my least favorite app," right, on their phone.
Absolutely.
And is there's a level of acceptance with like being not like depersonified almost, if I'm going to coin a phrase. It's my level of acceptance with dealing with an automated process. And I think that's just escalating. The younger generations are more accustomed to text responses, and they're more comfortable with talking to bots as a result. And some of the older generations that knew only voice are giving that up eventually. Are trying to give that up now. But there's definitely a trend to I want to be treated special, right? Part of my engagement with you is I want to talk to somebody versus being given just the answer, even if the answer is easy to get to. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And what's funny is I wonder if that's actually not wanting to use voice as a method, or if it's the experience dealing with people where you have had runarounds, or you haven't gotten the information, or you haven't, they're clearly not the expert, is the reason why you move away from the voice as a channel. Whereas you could see on TV now, you see commercials for Discover Card, where they brag about the fact that you talk to a real person.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So where?
See, I think that's a demographic play.
I agree. And but that is part and parcel, I would think. Correct me if I'm wrong. In how you set up those channels, if that is part of your business objectives to capture a new demographic, to expand your leadership in a certain area of sales, then by all means that's a method to do it, right?
Yeah, and I would agree with you on that, Sean. I mean, if I look at, right, we take the phone for example, and you call up, and you have to go 4 or 5 different levels, or your category is not in there. Press 5 for this, or do. At some point, it gets daunting, and then there's those rare occasions which seem to be occurring more frequently, where you get to where you need to go, and then you get disconnected. And
the dreaded disconnect.
And then, of course, you start back in that vicious cycle. And sometimes, depending on the organization, right? So I've had to call up before my utility company, my electric company, and there's no way for you to chat with them. You have to call, or you can email, but rarely do you ever get a response. So they're driving you to the phone, and others have it multiple channels, like my cable company. And I've learned it's best to just go chat with them online because the call is just painful.
Yeah.
But it raises a good point, because if you're going to have multiple channels set up, depending on, what your customer base, their preferences, then you need to make sure it's set up correctly, where you're not going to have a customer that's going to constantly get frustrated with trying to reach you and say, is this the best product for me? Should I go to somebody else to get a superior customer service experience?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what some of us, well, including myself, because I have no patience when it comes to that, bad customer service. If I have bad customer service too often, then I will rethink doing business with that company in the future. I can understand the one-off or the two-offs, but if it takes me 20 minutes to get through on a phone call, or I get disconnected and I try to chat and that doesn't work, we have problems.
Yeah, exactly. I really think, the IVR, we try to master it, right? I know when I get on the phone, I'm just like, how do I get to that person, right? If that's the only channel I can call on, I'll be pressing 0, nonstop, get me to, or saying customer service, right? So I think I'm sorry.
My wife talks slower and louder, as if you're trying to. It's okay. They speak Spanish. Okay, then I'm just going to talk it slower than they. It makes no sense, but that's what she does. So,
right.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, we've just come accustomed. We know that channel now, and we try to get to a person as fast as possible. So I too try to go online to say, maybe I can get what I need more quickly. It's about now, right? Getting everything fast. Yeah.
And then, by the way, they need to have like a straight to tier 2 or tier 3 option. Because if I'm calling you, you ought to be sure that I've exhausted every other option before I had to pick up that phone. So walking me through your starting script is not a good idea.
Well, that brings up a great point. Loyalty programs, or or priority, right? I have a customer now. We have a requirement to track some customers gold, silver, bronze, and though that acknowledges a certain level of service that they are provided. One of which could be go straight to tier 2. But there's a number of things we could do now with Dynamics 365, with Azure machine learning, with the cognitive capabilities, such as scanning case history when they call, knowing when the last time they called, if it was recent, move them to another tier, move them right to the next support line. Doing things with Unified Service Desk that can, cross-check a number of things. But all that being said, if you don't have the channels allocated appropriately, you could miss out on an opportunity, right? So, and the reason why I'm kind of focusing on that is because a number of things come in my head when I think of setting up omnichannel communication. One, obviously, is the customer experience. Second is the agent experience, right? So that's where we go. We're kind of shifting from a millennial as the customer, but the millennial as the employee. So if you have a millennial as an employee, I would think they're going to be much more able to adapt to that kind of omni-channel communication experience than someone older, right? They're not going to understand why someone wouldn't want to talk to a person, or someone wants them to email back, or they need to, cross-reference this information to get these analytics. The mindset of your future employee, they have been crowd-funded information since they were born.
Right?
So there's a certain level of they've been told what to think and how to react to certain metrics and certain triggers, right? Whereas someone in my generation, again, I'm not an old man, but I'm old enough to remember when there was no internet. So,
right,
my Pine account for email was amazing. So, it's just something that now has to be taken into account. Your company, your ability to do business with people in certain segments, mainly millennials, can be impacted significantly by the fact that you don't have any millennials working in your company, right?
True. I mean, you definitely want to be able to relate to them. I think along with that customer effort is understanding where it's important to streamline to be effective. And without, you can get all the market surveys you want, but you still need to go to the source because the surveys are following the behavior and you want to be able to predict it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and right down to the lingo. So I can think of a customer where their clientele is very young and it's all outdoorsy, and the way they talk to their clients, the millennials who are agents, is even different. The conversation is completely different, right?
Mm-hmm.
So definitely that you need to make sure that you have to target your audience, but really understand from a millennial's perspective, what can they bring to the table, especially in that type of business.
From that, I'd really like to understand, Todd and Leigh, what are some of the challenges that you face as a partner of a partner, in most cases, right? In the training of this brave new frontier, right? This omni-channel approach. How easily, or what challenges do you run into to convey that capability and knowledge to that staff that has to support that omni-channel capability?
Right. So I think what we're seeing at CaféX is, we're partnering alongside of Microsoft, and they're out there positioning Dynamics 365, which is an awesome CRM system. And the people with whom we are coming into contact, well, they're experts at CRM, right? Or they're evaluating CRM, or they've been partners that have implemented CRM, which is all very, they say it's a front office solution because it's customer facing, but it's really designed about capturing information for back-end analytics. And at least the challenge that I have seen is when we're walking into these partners and these opportunities, we're almost being evangelists as to how you can engage with your customers and what that really means as far as how you do the selection and how you're generating that data, those campaigns, and then getting the information for the analysis after the fact. And then what do you do with that? How does that morph your engagement strategies? So that's a different skill set than what CRM traditionally has approached. And so that ends up being a big challenge for us.
Let's dive a little bit more. I think for some of our audience, CaféX may sound like a fun place to go have coffee. So
it still could be,
it could.
Maybe it is somewhere, but we don't have that app that gets you your coffee ahead of time
Quickly. Yep.
That would be a very mysterious coffee place in my mind.
Right.
And you would never know what kind of bean they're brewing at that point in time. You just ask for a cup, and you get a cup of coffee. It's black. There's nothing in it, and that's all you get. There's no scones. It's just CaféX. You don't know. So that let's talk a little bit more about the product itself, because you guys have a lot of capability and functionality within CaféX itself. I mean, right off the bat, a number of assist apps. You have meetings, spaces,
Supervisor Assist, and then LiveAssist for Dynamics 365. Right. There are a lot of them.
Right. So let's just talk a little bit about CaféX, the product. Let's talk about what you typically implement and some of the experiences in responses to that.
Okay. So, I will start by saying that Leigh and I both work for the side of CaféX that is partnered closely with Microsoft. So
Great.
there are other arrows in our quiver, and they all come from the same source, which is we have built an omni-channel management platform, right? We can, and one of the best interfaces for that is our Chime Spaces product. So you can go online to our website and find out about what that does as far as collaboration goes. And when Microsoft decided to launch Dynamics 365, knowing that omni-channel interaction management was going to be a requirement of that cloud-based solution, they went through the process. Do you buy, do you build, do you partner? And they chose to partner with us because we had this platform. Mm-hmm. So Leigh and I work in the group that is, deploying and helping partners to sell LiveAssist for Dynamics 365. So it is a solution that has been co-engineered with Microsoft for the way that it appears within Dynamics 365 in the web agent, right? Whether that's the web agent or the unified service desk, but that agent experience has been co-engineered with Microsoft. And
that's important. Right. I don't want to lose sight of that, because as a partner myself, I have seen so many quote-unquote add-ons that are essentially an iframe bolted into a form that just, if you've done any kind of user experience modeling in your implementation, it destroys half of what you try to do. So having that work done up front with Microsoft to work within that experience, that is for me personally as a partner is an important step.
It's interesting,
especially presenting to the client.
Yeah, and we've been, our solution has been deployed to the various Azure clouds globally, and so I was at a trade show last year, and someone walked up to our booth and said, I don't know how you guys did it, but you're already deployed to my instance of Dynamics. and we are, we haven't been deployed yet, but we're one of the applications that shows up, and you can readily get it provisioned for you. So it's a testament to the importance that OmniChannel has, obviously for CaféX, but also within Microsoft's mindset.
And the main app with Microsoft Dynamics 365 is LiveAssist.
Correct.
Okay. And with that, right from jump, you get live chat, you could co-browse, you have bot integration, you have a mobile or mobility option, and you have, as we've been talking about on the web, all within the LiveAssist product. And from there, from my experience, you can enable whichever ones you want, how you choose to do it. And with that bot integration, the extensibility with the bot framework is pretty powerful.
And
you can do a lot of stuff with your product.
You can, and this is a tip of the hat to Microsoft. So when I'm demonstrating the product, I usually lead with a bot engagement that has to escalate, right? So again, there's that level of acceptance with automated servicing, depersonification, but at some point, if the bot gets stomped, or maybe it is a customer retention scenario, so I'm trying to find out how do I cancel my service. Well, we want to get you in touch with a retention expert, and we don't want this to be we don't want this to feel scripted. We want it to feel personal. So you need to escalate, and both of those scenarios play out really well for demonstrations, and they translate over well to actual businesses. But that bot portion of it, that's all Microsoft Bot Framework hosted on Azure. I get a lot of questions like, "Oh, how did you do this?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's a Q&A bot. Microsoft just offers the boilerplate code, and there's just a couple extra lines you need to escalate when the bot gets stumped." But it's a really powerful solution that they've made available to everyone, and it's not that difficult to work with.
And you could personalize it specific to the implementation that you're working on for your company.
Absolutely,
it's some cool stuff. And with the LiveAssist product, you have essentially 3 tiers, right? You have the core, the enhanced, and the premium. Give our listeners a quick summary of what are those packages and what
right.
What are
so core, enhanced, premium. There's probably not between core and enhanced, those are going to be fairly close together, and what they're encompassing is the bot integration, the chat, the content engagements. The premium is including the co-browse and then upcoming voice and video, which we're scheduled to have out at the end of Q1. So the premium is basically, you get all the toys. And then with the enhanced and core is somewhat limited, at least. You don't have the voice and video options.
Now, Todd, based on that, have you seen customers where they're trying to implement an OmniChannel strategy or revised OmniChannel strategy based on their have to revamp to kind of stay ahead of the curve. Have you seen customers start out with saying, well, do I really need the premium? Do I need the enhanced? Do I need the core? What do I need? I'm sure that happens because it happens to us all the time within Dynamics, saying, well, do we really need this?
Right.
Have you seen a lot of customers that would start out, say, like maybe with that enhanced package and pricing and features and functionality, and say, you know what? Wow, we really could use the enhanced features, or even go the other way around. My assumption is based on, and folks, please go to CaféX website and you can see all the LiveAssist features and functionality by the different packages. But I would think, it's going to be based on a business discussion and a business need and a strategy, and that partners such as ourselves or even CaféX can help them navigate that journey.
So you're absolutely right. Those are the kinds of questions that often come up is, okay, well, we may only have, we may start out with 50 agents that are going to be handling predominantly chat and have bot escalations, and we're going to have, maybe an additional 25 agents that are going to have access to the other channels. And so that's that's just part of the configuration of that particular opportunity is to find the right license mix that makes sense.
Definitely. And we do see a lot of clients that are really larger clients taking the whole package, right? Their omni-channel approach is wide, right? And they want to make sure that they're meeting all of their business requirements.
And do you see yourselves expanding into the other components of Dynamics 365, such as the new marketing app that they're building? I could see, a play for that kind of marketing assistance. Thinking bigger, longer term,
right?
Or what kind of areas or what's coming for LiveAssist?
So you're absolutely right. So crawl, walk, run. Our first release was into the customer service module within Dynamics 365. Our next module that we're supporting is going to be sales, and beyond that, it's fair to say that we will be looking at other things like field logistics and marketing and just wherever the market opportunity lies that has the most lowest hanging fruit is where we will go within the dynamic system. But I agree with you that marketing is definitely an interesting opportunity, especially with the product that's being developed.
Sure. This we're going to include links to the LiveAssist for 365.com site, and so our listeners can get to that as well and check out some of the white papers and videos that are available there.
Request a demo. You can request a demo there. I mean, there's I'm out on the various pages now, and you get some of the updates on the latest features. So what that has in terms of what the agents can see on their screen and some of those notifications. I mean, it really is, if you have not seen what CaféX can offer, and it's something that either you implement Dynamics or other software that could use CaféX, or you're a customer of Dynamics, I would recommend taking a look at everything it has to offer. It really is a fantastic set of products and functionality that it really will help implement that omni-channel strategy, and really just in general. I mean, forget just taking out the omni-channel strategy. You talk about just even call centers, right? And having things be a little bit easier for call center agents. It's just it has a lot of robust functionality that I think some agents that haven't had those before would probably be dying to have.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else you want to talk about in terms of LiveAssist, other CaféX offerings, anything, anywhere you're going to be? Are you going to be representing CaféX anywhere nearby soon.
So we will have a booth at Enterprise Connect in Orlando coming up here on, I believe that's the week of March 13th. And then there is there's another event the following week over in EMEA that we're attending, but that name escapes me at the moment. I believe Enterprise Connect is the next one that's on our calendar.
Have you been to the Gaylord Palms before?
I have, but not for Enterprise Connect.
It's a beautiful hotel.
It really, it's got that whole river thing going. It's like got its own ecosystem inside.
Yeah, and every time I go there, there's a section where there's a sailboat and a restaurant. Like you could eat on the sailboat.
Okay.
And I have to eat some kind of fish on the sailboat. It gives me this mindset that it's fresher. It's not.
Never mind the whole thing's manufactured. Because there's a sailboat, it's fresh.
It is. I take my mom there, and she loves it. She's like, I'm eating on a sailboat. You're not really, Mom, but that's okay. You know, it all goes back to OmniChannel experience. So, but I really appreciate you guys being on our podcast. This has been great, and I would love to offer you anytime you guys have a new product offering, want to talk about anything related to service, the invite's always out there. So anytime.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for having us today.
Yeah, thank you.
And lastly, Leigh and Todd, if any of our listeners want to reach out to you, are you on social media? Is there a method that you, what channel do you want them to reach out to you?
So I would probably prefer email. Is that kosher to give out email addresses on podcasts?
You are the OmniChannel guy.
Right.
If you want people to email you,
That's right.
That's the way to go. So we can put your email address on the show notes if you
Perfect.
want. We'll do that. Leigh, are you on any of the social medias?
I would probably go with what Todd said on email would be best.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got it. Then we will put that in the show notes.
Next time we'll do a bot for them. We'll get a bot going.
That's
just
right.
Type in contact Todd or Leigh.
We need our own bot.
Hey, you can spin one up really quickly and host it off of Azure.
You know what? I can. And I'm probably going to work on that after this podcast. But we'll make sure I know how to do it. But Todd, Leigh, this has been great. I really appreciate the conversation. I think it's an important one, and it's a big deal in Dynamics 365. And the more people know about it, I think the better for future implementations.
Totally agree, and thank you again.
Thank you.
On behalf of myself, Sean Tabor, my co-host Scott LaFonte, and the Dynamics 365 diva Sarah Jelinek, we thank you for listening and subscribing to the podcast. You can reach us at voice@crm.audio. On Twitter, you can follow us, CRM Hobbit for me, for Scott, at FLD Service _Guru, and of course, at Dyne365 Diva for Sarah. For more information and content about what we spoke about on this episode and others, visit our blog at atyourservicepod.com. This has been At Your Service on the CRM Audio Network, a production of Dynamic Podcasts, LLC.